Hello, and welcome back to another edition of the Creamsicle Chronicle podcast. My name is JT Olson. With me, as always, my co host, Garrett Ballard. Garrett, the big question, how's your bracket doing?
Uh, Not great. I will be, proud graduate of the University of Florida. Had them making a little bit of a run, and that went a bit south today. So we're in dire straits here, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't want to say I put money on Colorado to make the Elite Eight, but Florida losing was very important for me.
Yeah, that was rough. Officiating was trash. I'm, gonna go full fan here. Todd Golden said it best. He has 3 techs in his career. That ref has given him 2 now. That's a bit fishy to me, but only joking. I mean, sports are sports. It's going to happen, especially March Madness. Um, Favorites are going
Partially
to lose.
joking.
Yeah. I'm very salty about the outcome. That's for sure. But it's all right.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm doing a bunch of brackets. I think I'm in last in one.
That's big.
Yeah, it's gone rough. My bets are losing. My teams are losing.
Look, I just saw a thing. I think there's only 8 perfect brackets left, which is kind of insane just to begin with. Uh, that they made it that far. But um, it's the most unpredictable tournament, the best tournament in sports. That's for sure.
Shout out to those 8 people for picking my hometown, Oakland University Golden Grizzlies. Shout out Oakland County. We see you.
Oakland Grizzlies taking down the big dogs. That's for sure. That was an exciting game.
It was fun. They led like wire to wire, and that's like the
Yeah.
one upset I didn't see like potentially happening.
Yeah, I saw something. It was like, yeah, a lot of times when these top teams win, it's like they've just sucked. But like Oakland was just playing so well. Like they were just outplaying them fully.
Yeah. Partially because Kentucky's always been fraudulent, and partially because Golden Grizzlies.
Calipari's looking like a fraud
It's not going
for
good.
sure. Yeah, it's looking rough. Those was it Carl Anthony Towns days are behind you, buddy.
Yeah. Was he the coach for like those Memphis teams with Derrick Rose? Like, is that where he got?
I'm not sure. I don't really follow college basketball up until March Madness, but
Yeah, like those like 2 weeks leading up to conference tournament is like, okay, NFL is over, time to cram college
yeah,
basketball.
it's legit just see who's any like worth anything, and then you like, okay, I don't really know a lot about that team, but they're a 10 seed. Yeah, they'll beat the 7 seed for sure.
Evening, Christopher Cole. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
So let's not get too far down the rabbit hole on March Madness. You know, my favorite week in sports, but this isn't the March Madness podcast. This is a Tampa Bay Buccaneer podcast. So let's
Yeah.
talk some Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, and I think this episode is a perfect time to talk about personally my favorite week in sports, and that's the NFL draft.
Yes.
Uh, NFL draft is coming up in just over a month, the end of April. Um, the Buccaneers have some work to do. They did a good job in free agency, but there are definitely still holes on this roster that need to be filled. And luckily for them, a lot of those positions that they need are strengths of this draft class.
Yes, particularly the biggest strength of this draft class, in my opinion,
Mm.
the offensive line.
Yeah,
It's going to be an offensive
absolutely.
line heavy night.
Yeah, it's uh, Jason Light emphasized at the combine. We've seen them address some depth in free agency, and there are reports coming out that they like some of the top offensive linemen a lot, and we'll get into that in a bit. But um, they're going to address it early, and they might address it a couple times.
Yeah, that would be the way I would want them to go. Hit it first or second round, and then hit it again in the third.
Yep.
And we've seen Jason Light do that in the past. Let's not forget, Ali Marpet and Donovan Smith. He did it again with Sean Murphy Bunting and Jamel Dean.
Yep.
He is not afraid to double up and really get the
Carlton
most out of
Davis,
himself.
MJ Stewart.
Yes.
There's a lot of examples of this.
So I think this is a great opportunity for him to maximize what this class has to offer by hitting it early and often because This is the Bucs' biggest weakness. And we could argue offensive line versus edge, but the fact is we need one edge rusher as a starter and we need two interior offensive linemen. So, I mean, it makes sense you divvy your resources up that way.
Correct. And I know that there's a lot of, we're going to talk about all the positions in the next couple of weeks leading up to the draft, but there's a lot of flashy picks that can be made. There's a lot of good wide receivers this year. Some running backs are enticing, but you gotta have a good O-line. I mean, no matter what happens with the running back, they're not going to run well behind what we currently have on the interior with the running scheme that this team uses, right? A running back can fix that, but they're only going to really fix it if they have lanes to run through. I mean, we saw it with Rachaad White. People are calling Rachaad White trash because he's getting 2 yards a carry. Well, it's kind of hard to get more than that if you're running into defensive linemen. I mean, you got to get blockers to make those holes for your running backs. So, like you said, I'm all for them using 2 of their top 100 picks on offensive line. That's probably the best positional group in the draft, just as a whole: tackle, guard, center.
Yeah. I am not a believer that running backs don't matter, but I am a believer that offensive line matters a whole lot more, and a good offensive line can elevate a below average running back.
There's a lot of, center's the weak, like the least important offensive line position. I tune that out. Firsthand, seeing what Ryan Jensen was able to do for this offensive line with his attitude and the way he played, with how the Bucs run, it's important. You gotta have that intensity. You gotta want it, right? They're one of those teams. It's like, yeah, you got to be an athlete, but at the same time, you got to have the drive to compete, and you got to have the will to stand up for your guys and really be tough, right? We've seen it, like Alex Cappa was a pretty mean blocker. Ali Marpet, Donovan Smith, he was an athlete, but at the same time, he was feisty. And then obviously the king of that was Ryan Jensen right there in the center. So if you don't have a good guy, my dad says it, there's only 2 people that touch the ball on every play: the center and the quarterback, right?
That's right.
And that's a bit of a weird, funky little statement, but he's man in the ship. A lot of the times the center's calling out blocking assignments and checking guys on the defensive line. It's important. It's absolutely important. And then you got to have a cohesive unit, because if you have holes in 2 spots, that either means they're on the same side, they're both in the center, or they're on the opposite sides, which is not good, right? That means you have pressure coming from a lot of ways. So definitely got to fix it.
Yep, Garrett, you took the words right out of my mouth. Cohesive unit. There is no group that has to be more in sync than the offensive line, because it really is a position where you are as good as your weakest link. And, you could have 4 all pros, but if you've got someone blowing through your left guard every play, that blows up the whole play. It's over. So It's not like wide receiver where you can have a stud and then a mediocre guy, or, defensive tackle where you can kind of compensate for not having, premier pass rushers or things like that. If you have a hole in your offensive line, I mean, Buccaneer metaphor, you're on a sinking ship.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can get away with one iffy player, right? But
He has to
any
be
more than
average,
that,
I think.
exactly. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. He can't suck. That's for sure.
The Bucs Super Bowl team is a prime example. Donovan Smith had the best year of his career, and he played average to maybe a little bit above average ball.
Yeah, absolutely.
If he's bad, the Bucs don't win that Super Bowl.
Probably not. We've seen it this year. Robert Hainsey was not great. Who was their left guard? I don't even remember.
Aaron Stinney.
Not great.
He's
not even with the team anymore. Filer is, but right.
They brought Filer back?
Wait, did they not?
I thought they brought School back.
They brought School back. Yeah, you're right. And then right guard is Mock, who showed some promise, but again, at the same time, that's like the best of the 3, right? was your showed promise rookie from North Dakota State, which is not great. With all due respect to Mock, I think he's going to be good next year. You got to fill in those other two holes, because if he's not good, you can't really, bank on that.
Yeah. And I feel very confident in Mock. I mean, he had growing pains last year, which we all expected, making the kind of jump he made, switching positions, switching what side on the line he was on. You knew there were going to be some bumps in the road. But honestly, I thought he was way ahead of schedule last year. So getting a full
Absolutely.
off season, getting in the weight room, being that much more familiar with the NFL game and what his opponents look like, I think he's going to be more than average. I think he's going to be above average to very good next year.
I'm with you, but there's always the what if, right? So you got to prep for that. And luckily there's a lot of pro ready options in the interior offensive line this year.
So before we get to those pro options, we have a question in the comments from Christopher Cole. Christopher, thank you for your question. We appreciate it. Do you think the Bucs should trade up, trade down, or stay right where they're at?
What do I think they should do, or what do I think they would do?
If you're Jason Light, how would you approach this?
I personally would trade up with that extra third-round pick.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be a bunch, like I said, with that extra third, so it's not going to be too many picks forward. But in my opinion, there's
22 or 18 or something.
Sure. I think there's just a pretty far and away best interior offensive lineman in this class, and I would want to secure that.
I don't disagree with you. I think there are two right at the top for me, and we'll get into those here momentarily.
Sure.
But honestly, for me, it just depends on how the board falls. If one of those premier guys are there, then you look at it. Am I willing to part with a fourth or maybe even a third to go up and get a stud, someone I really think is going to be an all-pro caliber guy? Yes, that is the goal, is to acquire those kind of guys.
Some would say that's a cop-out answer, JT.
Well, I mean, I'll give you some names here. Let's jump into it.
No,
I'll tell
I'm kidding.
You
I'm totally
for.
But you're right. You're right. At the end of the day, it's just going to come down to what actually happens. But I felt like I want to give an answer. But you are correct. It does matter.
I guess if I have to pick one, no caveats, I would stay put. I think there's so much talent to be had in the second, third round.
Right.
I would hope my guy falls, and if not, I would just capitalize on the talent that's available, because I think this is a really good draft class through the third round.
Correct. You are correct. So, without further ado, let's dig into it. Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about some of our guys. Do you want to start with running back or offensive line?
I mean, we just primed offensive line. Let's do O-line.
Let's do it. There are a lot of names to talk about.
Yeah, there are. We'll try and keep it brief for a lot, because we don't want to be here for 4 hours. We could be, but I might be asleep. But yeah, we'll just give like a little like one-liner kind of thing. I'm pulling up lists right now. Yeah, we can go.
Okay, so right now I have 16 guys who I have watched, scouted, whatever you want to call it. 8 interior, 8 offensive tackle. So we'll focus on the interior guys.
Sure.
Top of my list, a lot of people are going to have him as a tackle, and I don't disagree with where they're coming from, but I think he's going to project better inside. I've got Troy Fontenot from Washington, left tackle, athletic, mean. He's great. I think he's going to be an all-pro caliber guard, similar to Zach Martin. I think he's kind of more of a Joe Thuney type. If he is there, you sprint it to the podium.
Yeah, he's a tremendous player. Trading Cody Mock to Washington. What is this? No, sir.
Sean, I appreciate you tuning in, but back off.
Yeah. No, but Fontenot is a hell of a player, that's for sure. After seeing the combine numbers, specifically the arm length, am firmly under the impression that he is a tackle. and will be drafted as such. Shades of Rashawn Slater. That's immediately what came to my mind from Northwestern, a guy that people were like, he's really good at tackle, but is he long enough to play in the NFL? And he was, and he's pretty darn good. So I have him as a tackle.
Yeah, and I think you're in the majority there. I
Yeah.
think the arm length, he hit that 34-inch threshold. That was a huge number for him, and I think teams are going to be looking at him as a tackle. For me, it was never about arm length. I wish he had shorter arms, but I think
Selfishly, yeah.
yes, I think just his athletic ability and his demeanor, I think it projects really well inside. I think he could be a good tackle in the NFL. I really do. I think he could be a above average starting tackle. I just think he can be an up star as a guard.
Yeah, no, that's totally understandable. I mean, I still like in my side of it, I still think Rashawn Slater could be like the best guard in football if he were to
Probably.
slide inside. But again, he's a star tackle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a team's gonna, I guarantee you, teams are having this exact conversation. Like, dude, look at Rashawn Slater. He's pretty freaking good in LA. This is him 2.0. They have that same, like you said, that same demeanor. They're pretty nasty. Both are really good athletes. And both had that question. So I think right now that's like my comp for him, Rashawn Slater. But I mean, if he's there and the Bucs want him at guard, I mean, you take him for sure.
Yeah. And I think he's one of two where you absolutely sprint it to the podium. And I know the other one is your top rated interior guy. He's my number 2.
Yeah.
Tell me about him.
Yeah. Jackson Powers Johnson. Man, I don't think he does a thing poorly, truthfully. I see, and this is not like a Bucs bias in my eyes. I see a lot of Ryan Jensen in his game. Mean. He is nasty on the field. Really good mover. I think he's a bit shorter than Ryan Jensen, if I'm correct.
I'll pull up those numbers while you're done.
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah, but really good in space. Like if you take like the best parts of other centers in this draft and put them in one, Jackson Powers Johnson is that guy. And a report came out the other week from Chad Forbes saying that the Bucs love Jackson Powers Johnson and they definitely want him. And I think we kind of knew that from the Senior Bowl and just how things were being reported. But there's the confirmation, right? They are looking at early interior offensive line. Sean, I also love JPJ. He is a stud. I think he's a can't miss prospect. I like if you get this player, I think he's an instant impact day one starter. Like top half of the league, probably top 10 centers in the league early in his career.
Yeah, I think he is a plug and play starter with Pro Bowl, All Pro potential.
Yeah,
I fully echo what you said.
He's outstanding. And we were talking about it. I said I have one clear player in my mind for who they should target in round 1. It is him. Obviously, you have Fountain. If he's there, he's also someone I would target, just to be clear. But I just think he's going to go a bit earlier now because of his thresholds that he met. So.
Yep. And looking it up, Ryan Jensen was a little bit taller, but they had the same arm length, 32 inches, little change there.
Yeah.
But Jensen was an inch taller, but Jackson Powers Johnson is 10 pounds heavier. So he is an absolute wall to run through. You can't run through him. And what I really like about the idea of him in this offensive line, he adds an element that they don't have on the interior. Because Cody Mauch, he's more long and athletic. And I think whoever they put on the other side of there, whether it's a Bredesen, he's kind of that similar mold, long and athletic. JPJ is a big, physical, mauling dude who is athletic enough to do all the things those other guys can. So in terms of getting out in space, running those zone concepts, getting to the second level, he's great at it. But he's also a guy who's going to generate push at the point of attack, which a guy like Mauch can do once he gets in the weight room a little more, but Powers thrives at it. So I think having that muscle in the middle will do a ton of benefit for both guards.
Yeah, and I think like the kind of intense run blocking attitude paired with the above average to great space movement is where I see the shades of Ryan Jensen, right? Because obviously when you think of Ryan Jensen, you think of him getting in the face of anyone that he wants to, honestly, and throwing guys on the ground. And then, but at the same time, you see him climbing to the second level, pulling every now and then on lead blocks. Like, it was really a do-it-all center, and I see that in Jackson Powers Johnson.
Yeah, he is. I don't want to say he's a perfect interior offensive lineman, but I can't remember feeling higher about an interior offensive lineman prospect.
Yeah.
And that includes Creed Humphrey, who is one of the probably the best two centers in the game right now.
I'm the one player that I kind of recall being super high on, and I don't think I was high enough on him, but was Eric McCoy.
Yes.
From Texas A&M. He's a stud with the Saints now, but that's kind of like the last one where I watched him. I was like, yeah, this guy's going to be really good in the NFL for a long time. No one's a perfect prospect, but I think Jackson Powers Johnson is as close as you can get, if I'm being honest.
I fully agree. He is another sprint to the podium kind of pick.
Yeah, I think like we said, those are the top two. I mean, if you see him as a guard or a tackle, Fontenot, it doesn't really matter. He's a great player.
Yep. And then I do think there is a little bit of a drop off, even though I think this interior class is extremely good. I don't remember a better, more talented, deeper class than this one.
Right.
But there's a second tier, then it starts after those two guys.
Yeah. I think we're going to have the same guy next.
Who do you got?
I have Zach Frazier's.
I have Zach Frazier as well.
Yeah.
You're correct.
Yeah. Lead us off on Frazier's here.
So Frazier is, if Powers Johnson is very athletic, Frazier is incredibly athletic in terms of the way he moves.
Yeah.
He's lighter, and you see an increased movement ability with that lack of weight. He can get out into space. He can get to the second level. He's outstanding. He's going to come in and be one of the most mobile offensive linemen in the league. And for a team that wants to run, a lot of outside zone concepts, he is going to be an instant plug and play star. The Bucs, I think, want to run a lot of those. I just don't think they have the talent currently over the last 2 years to pull that off. So they've run, more interior stuff. To add a guy like Zach Frazier, I think would add another element to their running game, which I think they really want. And this is the perfect player to bring that.
Yeah, no, I concur. You definitely see like the lack of weight to show up every now and then. But like you said, he can flat out fly. There was an injury this last year, so he didn't play a ton, but I think he's recovered from that. I think he was a fantastic high school wrestler from what I was reading. And
yes, 4-time state champion.
That has turned out pretty well for the Bucs before. Tristan Wirf's another great wrestler. A lot of offensive linemen are really good wrestlers in high school. But that's just something that I kind of like, one of those little points. But yeah, you kind of covered it with the dude can move, he's pretty quick. And I think there's some stuff, like I said, left to be desired in terms of like, if you're not running those outside zone things, if you're running a lot of those duo or inside zone like the Bucs do a lot as well, it might get a bit dicey. And like you said, there is a drop off. This is we're going from firmly entrenched in the top half of round one on my board, at least, to probably the middling areas of round two with Zach Frazier. So there is a drop off, and you can understand why. But I mean, for a round two player, knowing that the Bucs are bringing in someone with similar outside zone tendencies to Sean McVay, this is an attractive option for sure.
And Frazier is smaller than Jackson Powers Johnson, no doubt about that.
Right.
But he's not small. He's 6'2", 313. So he well clears that 300 pounds. He did 30 bench reps at the combine. So he's not, a small, weak center who can move. He is, he is average size. He's at his best
average on the move, though.
Yes.
Like by far. But like I said, Not a bad player.
No, I think you get him in an NFL weight room, and a year from now,
Yeah.
he could be the best player in at his position. Just the way he moves, you can add a little more power in the lower half. He could be an absolute star in this league, and I think a lot of it's going to depend on the offense he lands with. But I think the world of Zach Frazier. He is my 21st ranked overall prospect.
Hey, look at that. Yeah, the upside is tremendous. Absolutely. Like, I think if you're looking at the top two for me, the third for you, and Jackson Powers Johnson, the instant impact, which I think the Bucs are going to prioritize, with Jackson Powers Johnson, is going to hold a bit more weight in that room.
There is one thing that concerns me with Frazier in terms of the
Sure.
Bucs.
Yeah.
They haven't talked with him at all.
Yeah, that I was gonna say it's a concern, but they didn't talk to Cansey a single time.
It's true.
Like, they do that. They either talk to them a bunch and it's super clear who they like, or they're like, hey, who knows?
Yeah, but just the way they talk to every offensive lineman in this draft. I think
Yeah.
they had like
Yeah.
14 formal interviews at the combine with offensive linemen, and then a bunch of informal interviews.
And Zach Frazier's wasn't on there at all.
Not at all.
Yeah, it is super weird. You're
not
not
sure
wrong.
if White could pick out Frazier in a line.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You are not wrong.
So I'm not sure that the Bucs love Zach Frazier, because I think they do want a little bit more of that power element to go with that athletic ability.
Yep.
But I think he is a fantastic player, and he's going to be a star somewhere.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. We're just ranking the guys we're watching. In terms of the Bucs, I agree. I don't think he's as good a fit as other options, but certainly wouldn't be a bad one.
No, I think he'd be a very good fit, and I would be very happy. I mean,
Yeah.
I would be happy at 26. It seems like a lot of the teams in the NFL value him a little bit later than that, so I'd like to get him a little bit later, but in terms of my board, I would be just fine with him at 26.
Yeah, I mean, if they're looking to go for a center with their first pick, this is definitely a trade down candidate if they want Frazier.
Yep, I think that would be a very realistic path.
Yep.
So let's jump into our fourth ranked guy. I think we're going to differ a little bit here.
Yeah. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
You go ahead, and I'll
Okay.
tell you if I got the same one.
Hold on, my computer's freaking out. I'm trying to pull up my notes here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go. Dominic Pooney.
Ooh, you went way different than what I thought
Kansas.
You would. Okay, talk me into Pooney, because he's lower for me.
I'm a fan. I think he's super pro ready. First of all, I'm going to read off his combine numbers, right? Oh, gosh. He is 6'5", 320 pounds. He ran a 5.35 40-yard dash, which isn't outstanding. But he has 33 and 3/8 inch arms, so he's like on the longer end for guards. He is the size and the length. He's 6'5", 320, like I said. Power, right? We're talking about guys, the Bucs, they want power in the interior. This is power incarnate, right? This guy is super powerful. He's not going to really get tossed around. But at the same time, I think he has a little bit of movement, right? I wouldn't necessarily say he's like a pull guard, but I think in terms of guys that you need to climb to the second level and swallow up those linebackers and potentially safeties, I think Pooney is that guy. If he can get his hands on you first, it's wraps. He's not really going to let you shove him around and do all that hand stuff that defensive linemen do. And I think, I think he's just like a super pro ready blocker. He took center snaps at the Senior Bowl, so NFL teams might see a little bit of versatility there. I'm a fan of Dominic Pooney, that's for sure.
Yeah, Pooney was a way different evaluation than what I expected, just looking at his measurements that were listed. 6'5", 320. I'm expecting, a bruiser, a mauler. He's not.
Mm-hmm.
He is athletic. He is mobile. He is more a mover than a mauler. The one thing that kind of concerned me a little bit is I have a different listing from the combine in terms of his weight.
Oh, what
So
is yours?
so I'm looking at the Kentley Platt Raz. He puts out the Raz cards for all the players. According to the Raz card, he measured in at 6'5", 303.
Yeah, I struggle to see that being his playing weight.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to make of that because, admittedly, his power did leave something to be desired compared to the 320 pounds that I kind of went in with.
Sure.
I didn't think he always played to that, and I feel like that was more like a rolling the hips kind of technical issue. Having 320 pounds, he's got the size, he's got the bulk. But now seeing that weight, it's kind of like, ooh, maybe Kansas just lied to me. So I
I mean, it
wasn't
could
sure
be.
what to make of it.
It could be. I mean, I think the other thing that kind of comes to my mind when I'm thinking of like a 320-pound player with not super evident power on tape is like how much of that is like a technique thing rather than a
Hmm.
not able to do it thing. Because let me, um, did he bench? He didn't bench, which
He
is weird.
didn't. I know. All his other testing numbers, his explosive numbers, his
Yeah, they're
shuttle,
great.
they're
Yeah,
great. But I
yeah,
really wanted to see that bench, especially at that lighter weight. I wanted to see,
yeah.
how much power we're working with here.
And maybe that was a strategic thing, right? Maybe his agent and him, they said, "Hey, we're gonna really lighten you up for the combine, and then we're gonna put all that muscle mass back on you for the pro day, and you're gonna hit 40 reps on the bench or something crazy." I don't know, but
Yeah. And
I
if
don't
he
know when
does
their pro
that, if he
day.
does, if he approaches 30, 25 to 30, I'm going to feel really comfortable with him.
Sure, yeah, and I'm gonna say again, this is like third round range for me now, right? Like there's another bit of a step down in terms of the where these guys would be drafted. Um, but yeah, Dominic Pooney, I'm a fan.
And I do think this is one that the Bucs are very interested in. We talk about that double dip. I think he could be that second pick they
Yeah.
look at.
Yep.
They did meet with him formally at the combine, so he's someone who's definitely on their radar. He gives
Yep.
you some of that kind of Cody Mock build, tall but lean muscle, tackle experience, which they like.
Mhm.
Kansas isn't technically a small school; they're Power Five, but I mean it's Kansas.
Right.
They're basically a Division II football team most years.
Hey, they're bringing it back.
They are. They've been on a heater the last couple of years, so
Yeah, they're bringing it back.
respect to the Jayhawks.
Yeah.
But
Who's next for you?
my next one is a very different mold, but a guy I really like,
I think I
and that
know
is
who you're gonna say.
same state actually, Kansas State guard Cooper Beebe.
Yeah, he's next for me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
could
I love
not
Cooper
be.
Beebe.
Oh, he is so throwback. Like you put a neck roll on him, and this is just a old '70s guard.
Yeah.
Big, physical, mauler. You're not going to run through him. He's just a put you on your butt kind of dude.
Hmm.
And, could not be more different. He can get into space a little bit, but he's a little bit heavy footed. If you want to run, a lot of those pulls and, second level outside zone kind of things, might not be his niche. But if you want to run some more power, get a little bit more beef in the middle, he is the dude.
Yeah. I'm that's the reason why Pooney's above him is just I think the upside's higher with his movement. But Cooper Beebe pro ready, right? You're gonna plug him in there and he's gonna hold his own pretty well from day one, I feel. This is someone that I've mocked to the Bucs before and I think is a really good option for them on day two, especially in that third round where he's kind of looking. But for someone that if I recall, for someone that has that kind of clunky tape and movement, he tested pretty well at the combine, right?
He did. He tested really well. He has
Yeah,
a 9.71 RAS.
that's
And the
tremendous.
the only thing he didn't do was the bench press. Another thing I wish I would have seen him do that too, but
Yeah.
strength is not his concern.
No, he's very, very strong. He'll put you on the ground, that's for sure. Um, I'm not really worried about his bench press as much as Pooney, but um, that kind of that athleticism, it makes you like, what the heck? I didn't really see this, because the tape you really don't. And maybe that's the Kansas State offense, and they just didn't really do it a bunch. But um, he was definitely that bruiser guy that tough nose, like you said, put a neck roll on him, old style of blocker.
And I'm trying to remember what he was listed at Kansas. I'm looking it up right. Yeah. So Kansas listed him at 6'4", 335, and he weighed in at 220 or 322 at the combine. So he very well could have trimmed up. But honestly, I would like to see him at a little bit of a lighter playing weight anyway. So if he can maintain this, I
Yeah.
think that's kind of ideal for him.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think if he can stick like around that 315 to 325 range, keep his physicality and add a little bit of movement, he probably shoots up above Pooney for me.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to like in him, especially for a team that wants to get more physical at the point of attack.
Yeah, he and Pooney are very close. Like it's very close in terms of where they are. But I like the upside with Pooney, I think.
All right, so this next one, I think we're going to start to realign a little bit more.
Okay.
So my fifth rated guy, I have Graham Barton from Duke.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't really know where to put him. I'm going to put him at interior because I think he projects there, but he's literally played everywhere on the offensive line.
Yeah, and I think the last 2 years he's been left tackle, but he's played center. I mean, he is experienced at multiple positions. So Barton is, there's a lot to like about him. I really do like a lot about him. He's athletic. He is physical. He is still a work in progress for me in some ways. I wish he can get out into space, but his angles aren't always great. And sometimes he's kind of left looking for someone to block because the guy he should have blocked ran by him. He just didn't get the right angle.
Yep.
His hand placement is spotty.
Yep.
Now, his grip strength is incredible. He might have the greatest clamps I've ever seen, but in terms of placing those hands and kind of maximizing his athletic ability, it's hit and miss. So I don't know if he's plug and play, but there's a lot of potential here with athletic ability and just hand strength.
Yeah.
I just wish he was a little bit more polished at the things I want him to do well.
I'm very suspect on his ability to play against power. Jared Verse ate him alive. That was a really rough game for him. Jared Verse is, of course, one of the top edge rushers in this draft, but people are mocking Graham Barton to the Bucs in the first round, right? If you're taking a player like that in the first round, you'd think he'd be able to hold his own against other first-round players at least, right? But I mean, Jared Verse, very powerful player, aggressive, speed, power, all that. He put Graham Barton on his ass a couple times. So I'm a bit suspect on his play strength.
And I do think that's one of those things where you mentioned earlier, is it technique or is it power? I do think it's a technique thing because if you can't use your hands properly and you let your opponent get into your chest, then you lose your natural power.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think that's more the case with him. So I think he's a little bit of a, not a plug and play guy, which isn't ideal for a first round pick.
Yeah.
But I think he has the talent to be very good.
Yeah, I mean the athleticism is super enticing, of course, and the upside that goes along with it. Like you said, though, I don't see a first round pick here. I don't see a second round pick. I think this is like a third round player for me. This is like my, we talked about it a couple of years ago. What's like our doomsday scenario in round one? I think it's staying put and drafting Graham Barton at 26.
And I think it's something we need to brace for because I do think this is probably the most likely scenario.
Oh, really? You do?
I do. I was listening to the NFL Draft Stock Exchange with Trevor Sikkema, last week. They were doing their mock draft, and he said, and I quote, "The Bucs love Graham Barton." So obviously, Trevor Sikkema covered the Bucs, was with Pewter Report. That's the most connected, most respected Buccaneers source there is. I'm sure he still talks to people in that group. The intel that he said kind of tells us that the Bucs really like Graham Barton, and if a guy like Jackson Powers Johnson isn't there, I do think they'll go in that direction.
I mean, if that's the case, that's a very realistic scenario that they're like, hey, we like a lot of these guys. We like multiple of these guys. There's no need for us to trade up for one of them.
Yeah, and I kind of share your sentiment. I don't want to spend that first pick on my 5th rated interior guy. That's
Right.
that's not ideal.
Yeah. I don't think he's ready yet, and I think for what the Bucs are trying to do, you need someone that's ready right now.
I fully agree. I will say this about Barton. Just having listened to his interviews and getting a chance to hear all these guys talk, he does come off as someone who's highly intelligent. And not just because he went to Duke, because, who knows how real some of these degrees are for these, high caliber athletes. But just listening to him talk about the game, talk about what he does, I can understand why the Bucs like him and how he could win you over in an interview.
Yeah.
I think him and Jackson Powers Johnson both come off as highly intelligent center prospects.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, that's important. You got to call out some blocking assignments and maybe some shifts on the D line, but that's a very important part of the game. But the upside, it's there. Currently, no. I struggle to get there, man. Like I really do.
No, I'm with you. It's something I'm kind of coming to terms with.
Yep.
But I think he is one of the 2 players who I think is the most likely scenario. And we'll talk about the other one next week when we talk defensive line.
Yeah. I think just looking at kind of the timing, do you want to go through, how many did you watch? You said 8?
8, and we just got through 5, and then Pooney was one of mine who's a little further down my list. So I have
Do you just
2
want to
more.
list your next 3? And we could get on to the next position.
Sure. So we talked about Pooney. He's actually my 8th ranked guy. Between him and Barton, I have at 6 Christian Mahogany, the guard out of Boston College. He is just mobile enough to be good at pulls. I don't know how great he is getting out into space, but if you ask him to pull backside and block someone, or be the lead guy, pulling out, he's good at that. He's good in terms of that short distance. He can get it done. But what he really is, he's a big physical mauler.
Yeah.
He's another one very similar to a guy like Jackson Powers Johnson, Cooper Beebe. He's in that same kind of mold. Big, push you around type of guy. And he's athletic enough to do the things you want to do in terms of getting into space.
Yeah, he's my 7.
And then I think we probably have the other one is Kristen Haynes, back-to-back Kristens, guard out of UConn. He's a little bit more athletic. He's more of that move, get into space guy. A little undersized. I don't have his combine numbers up, but just watching him play, he's not a power guy, but he is scrappy. He's got that dog mentality, that pit bull mentality. So
yeah.
I think he's more of a fighter to generate some push, but I don't think he has the raw natural power.
Yeah, I concur. He's my 6.
Yeah, and really those guys are super close for me. It just kind of depends on what you want. Pick your flavor.
Yeah. My 8, I'm just gonna say it. It's what's his name? Mason McCormick from South Dakota State. Just an athlete. The upside is crazy. Pretty much.
Yeah, I got into his tape a little bit, not enough to really feel like I had a full evaluation on him.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of really good things about him because of that athletic ability.
Yeah.
He was a little bit more all over the place than I was expecting.
Yeah, the floor is low, but I'll bank on the upside for sure. I didn't watch it. That's like I watched one more, so he was just better than the next guy I watched.
Who was that other guy you watched?
It was Van Pran.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've watched him. I've evaluated him. I'm not far enough in my overall big board to actually place him yet.
Yeah.
And I think I'm in the 80s on my big board, so I do not think very high of him. I don't think he'll make my top 100.
Yeah, his calling card is definitely movement, and it's spotty at times. I don't think he has very much power.
So anyone who's doing the mock draft simulator, if you're taking Cedric Van Pran, I don't love it.
Me neither. If you're taking Graham Barton, I don't love it.
Not at 26.
But yeah, I can get on board with that a bit more than Van Brand though in the third.
Way more for me. I
Yeah.
definitely see the tools to where he could be something where Van Brand is just kind of there.
Yeah. Do you want to do? I mean, do we want to do tackles?
Let's just touch on a couple of these guys who some people
Yeah.
project to kick inside.
Sure.
So Joe Walt's going to be a tackle.
Yep.
Olu Fashanu is going to be a tackle. Adarius Mims is going to be a tackle. A couple of names who I have seen as potential guards. One is Talise Fuaga from Oregon
Yeah,
State.
he's a friggin' stud.
Yeah. For me, he's a tackle, but
Yeah, me too.
I could see him playing guard. He's a great run blocker. He's athletic. He's powerful. There's a lot to like about him.
He's really friggin'. He's like a top 15 player in this class. He's so good.
I honestly, I think the Chargers are going to trade back and they're going to take him at 11.
Yeah, I could see that.
One name who the Bucs did have a formal interview with, and a lot of people project him to move inside because he doesn't meet the arm length threshold. Arizona left tackle Jordan Morgan.
Yeah, he's an intriguing one.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on him?
Where is it? Sorry. I don't think he's the play strength isn't there for me. I think he needs to get stronger.
If he's moving inside, definitely.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I'm not like I think the tools are really, really good. I think the development's really nice. Like the hands, really quick, really accurate. And the feet, obviously, like his drops are very fast and very smooth. But that's nice for a tackle. But if, like you said, he didn't meet the arm length requirement, someone might try him out there still. But if you are eventually going to kick inside the guard, you got to hit the weight room. You got to get stronger.
Yeah, and for me, I view him as a tackle because he is more, light on his feet, dancing
Way
there.
more finesse. Yeah.
Yes. So he can be a really good tackle in like a zone blocking scheme, like what San Francisco runs.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's a fit for the Bucs because I don't think he has that power element to run some of the more inside duo concepts. And, Luke Gadecki has very similar arm length. He's just shy of 33 inches, so he's not way off the threshold. It's kind of an arbitrary number, but a lot of teams care about it.
Right.
I do think he's more of a tackle than a guard, so I could understand why some people might think him as a interior guy. Bucs have a need there, but for me, I don't think it's a fit.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And let's see. J.C. Latham is a tackle.
Yep.
Tyler Guyton, they met with at the combine in a formal interview.
He's a tackle.
I see him as a tackle pretty clearly.
He's a tackle for sure.
I don't know if he's a good tackle, but I think he's a tackle.
He's a tackle. Yeah.
And
I think he's pretty good.
He's not my flavor.
Fair.
And you know what it is? It's because he wears the number 60 and it has no vibes to it.
Negative vibes.
And then the last guy who I've evaluated is Kingsley
Suamataya.
Saltalamacchia.
Yeah.
I really like him as a tackle. He's undersized, but he has long arms. I think he could play guard. He does have that physical, nasty element to his game. So I think there could be a connection there. But I do see him as more of a tackle.
Yeah, me too. I think the upside is like the frame is weird. Like you said, he's a bit small, but his arms are long. And then the athletic traits are good. But yeah, he's a tackle in my opinion.
Yeah. So I don't think there's a lot to say about the tackles. Morgan's really the only one of that top group who I think is even worthy of conversation. So
yeah,
overall, very good group of tackles.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, it's a good group all around. Like all these guys we talked about are going to get drafted in the first 3 rounds of the draft. So pretty good.
Yeah, I think 7 out of my 8 tackles are in my top 50.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Doesn't help the Bucs any, but hey, good for teams like, I don't know, the Titans who stink and need a tackle.
Yeah, not wrong.
So let's go to running back because that's the other kind of one that's kind of linked with the trenches, and the Bucs do have a need there, and I do think there's a lot of names worth mentioning.
Yeah, let me pull up my list. Okay.
There
Sorry.
are a lot of guys who I've watched at this position.
Yeah.
I don't really have my rankings sorted out. Yeah, I've kind of got my top 3 or 4, and then I've got a bunch of guys who I'm still trying to order.
I have my one for sure.
Who's your one?
I have Trey Benson.
That's mine as well.
Yeah, I think he's pretty clearly the best running back in this class. He kind of offers it all. So
Yeah, I mean he's 6 foot,
yeah.
215. He's very fast. He can catch the ball. He's got decent vision. He's a very well-rounded running back prospect, and I think someone's going to get a very solid to above average running back there.
Yeah, I think he's very go for sure. I think he might need to slow down at times, but everything he does with the ball in his hands once he gets into space is very, very unique and special to watch. So I'm a fan of him. I think he's pretty clearly the best running back in this class.
Yeah, and I don't think he's going to be in play for the Bucs because running back, it's not that big a need. You got Rachaad White. He's your number one. They're looking for a supplement, kind of complement to him. And
yeah.
Benson would be great, but he could push for that number one job, and I don't think they're going to invest a high enough pick for that.
Yeah. So I'm kind of with you. I have a group of running backs that are in like the same tier, right? They're all in like that round 3 back range, but I have one that I think is like really perfect for the Bucs.
Who you got?
It's not Ray Davis. I do like Ray Davis a lot, but he is also 25. It's Marshawn Lloyd.
That's my number 2.
Yeah. I think he's probably my number 2. I think he fits exactly what the Buccaneers need right now.
Yeah, I didn't realize until the combine that he was as big as he is in terms
He's
of
like
weight.
220 pounds. He's huge.
Yeah. And he's 5'8", so it's very compact, very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, if it's like your Ray Davis is a very similar frame, right? Like smaller but bulky. But you take away like 3 years and you get Marshawn Lloyd. I'm a big fan of Marshawn Lloyd. I think his athleticism for his size is special. I think he might need a little bit of vision improvement, which is, I don't really know how that works, but just choosing the right way to go, pretty much.
Well, and I think that USC offense does him zero favors.
You are very correct.
Like, that is one of the most putrid rushing concepts I've ever watched.
Yeah, it's bad. It's not good, but he made it look pretty good. Like, that's a pretty good testament to his abilities.
And you touched on his athletic ability.
Yeah.
He ran a 4.46 at 5'8", 220. So he is a bowling ball coming at high speeds.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of big running backs in this class. There aren't any with his level of athleticism.
Yeah, and I think he's perfect for what the Bucs need. If you can slam into the line and just power through guys, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Small, powerful, explosive. He can break some big runs. I mean, he's not a burner, but he has the burst to hit the hole at high speed and really maximize his power.
And I mean, the other thing is when you're small, you don't need as big of a hole to get through, right? Like, he can kind of crouch down and he can squeeze through some smaller holes. So if there are some growing pains with some rookie interior offensive linemen, it might alleviate them.
Yeah, he is an absolute slasher. To use an NBA term, he is a guy who's going to cut to the rim and slam it home.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Marshawn Lloyd. I think he is, if we're reorganizing our board for Bucs RB1, I think it should be Marshawn Lloyd.
And I think the Bucs feel the same way because he is one of 2 running backs who they met formally with at the combine.
Yep.
Ray Davis being the other. And I was listening to the Pewter Report podcast. They did indicate, they didn't report, but they indicated that the Ray Davis interview did not go very well, and to maybe start disassociating the Bucs with him. But Marshawn Lloyd, he only had 2 formal interviews. One didn't go well. That kind of leaves him as the front runner, I think.
That's great. That's great news to hear, in my opinion. Like I said, I like Ray Davis and what he's able to do, but he's got a lot of miles, right? Marshawn Lloyd definitely does
5 years of college football.
5 years of college football is a lot, and he was a big time part of it for like 4 of them. Marshawn Lloyd, not nearly as many miles on his treads, and he offers a very similar skill set with what I think is a bit more of an explosive athletic profile.
And I think one thing to mention with both Lloyd and Trey Benson,
Yeah.
both have excellent ball security.
Yes, they don't fumble.
Never. They never. I don't think Benson fumbled once in his college career.
No.
And I don't think Lloyd did either. Lloyd has 0 career fumbles.
Look at that. Like I said, there are some bigger running backs in this class. I think a couple of them of the other ones have ball security concerns.
Yeah, I'm trying to double check his
I might be
career
wrong.
fumbles, but yep, 3 years of college football, 0 recorded fumbles.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's what you want. You want a guy who can power back with ball security because you don't want turnovers in the red zone.
That's correct. That is correct. Who do you have next?
My next guy is kind of the similar mold to Trey Benson. I just don't like him as much. That's Jonathan Brooks from Texas. Very well-rounded, does it all.
Yep.
Very solid at everything. Another one who I think is going to be off the board before the Bucs really look at it, and I don't think he's a perfect fit for what they're looking for.
I'm with you. I think he's like Trey Benson lesser, which is like we said, a good running back. Not necessarily what the Bucs need. Like these profiles as kind of they get the majority of touches in a backfield, or maybe like a very split backfield in terms of like even carries. So I don't think the Bucs are gonna look in this direction. I think he's fine. But yeah, not for the Bucs.
Who's your next guy after that?
This is where it gets a bit dicey.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion.
There's a lot of names, but I don't think there's a lot of substance.
There's a lot of Yeah, you're correct. See, it's like Bucky Irving's really enticing in the passing game. Blake Corum is like he has a lot of really good production, but I'm not sold on the athleticism.
He looks like a different player last year after his knee injury 2 years ago.
Yeah,
he looks like he lost a little juice.
Yeah, it was not great. And then you got guys like Braylon Allen and Audric Estime who are just bruisers, right?
Which is what the Bucs want.
Right, but I think that you need a little bit of gusto, right? It's just the profile is so one-dimensional.
And they don't have to be fast. That's not what the Bucs I think need.
Right.
But their acceleration is basically non-existent.
Oh my god, dude. It's like a semi-truck pulling out of a driveway. Like, dude, watch Braylon Allen breakaway runs are like, man, he is playing some slow players. Like, I'm sorry. Like, he is playing against some slow DBs.
Well, he kind of reminds me of Derrick Henry because once he gets rolling at top speed, he is fast.
It just takes 10 years.
Yeah, it is. If you're getting hit in the backfield at all, you're just not going to make it.
Yeah, no, it's not going to work. Estimates.
I think he's very similar without the top end speed.
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm 100% with you. It's like Allen's above Estime because of the top end speed. Allen fumble concerns, by the way.
Yeah, so there's a lot I don't like about Allen.
Yeah,
but vision and acceleration are two of the things I value most in a running back.
Yeah,
and they don't clear acceleration for me.
Someone that I'm a bit intrigued about with Will Shipley.
Clemson.
Yes.
Haven't watched him yet. Tell me about him.
He's not what the Bucs want at all.
All right.
He is like a very versatile running. Like he's agile, he's quick, he's decisive, good receiver, like not a bruiser whatsoever. So not what the Bucs are going to look for. Not really. He's kind of that Rachaad White mold. So that's kind of, I think, why I like him. But he's not what the Bucs want right now. That's for sure.
I think my fourth name, the top three, and then my fourth name is the one who we've talked about the most, and that is Ray Davis.
I would agree with you. He probably is my fourth. I kind of was grouping him in there, so that's my bad.
And, he is 25, so that very much devalues him.
Mm.
But this is a situation where you get a guy for one contract, you get the most out of him, and then you let him walk. Now, that's a lot of times the case with running backs, especially a depth running back. So whether he's 25 or 22, you're only getting one contract out of him. So
my
I'll take
concern
it.
is like, do you even get one?
I think you get one. I mean, I'm not asking him to be a burner. I just want him to smash into the line at high speeds and use his physicality.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like that style of runner is more likely to not see the end of his first contract.
I think when you get older, you lose a step in terms of speed.
We got some breaking news, JT.
Ooh, what is that?
Look in the chat, my friend.
What are the Titans doing?
Titans are trading a
Christopher Cole, our own Adam Schefter.
Yeah, appreciate that, Chris. Titans are trading a 2025 third round pick and flipping 2024 seventh round picks with the Chiefs for L'Jarius Sneed.
So a third round pick and seventh round pick swaps.
Correct. That's what I'm
Not
saying.
that far off from what the Bucs got for Carlton Davis.
You're not wrong.
So again, Jason Light masterclass.
Yep.
The Titans are the most confusing team to me because last year they were a bad team and they looked like a bad team. This year they look like a bad team who's going to masquerade as a good team. And I don't get it. They're just ignoring a rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, a 2025 third round pick might save them this year, right? And a seventh isn't going to do a ton for them, but
Sure.
They definitely got a hit on their draft.
But now they have to pay him, and that's the big thing.
They are going to pay him. That was part of the thing. He's going to sign a new contract with Tennessee.
And what are they paying him for? They're going to stink anyway. You're not going to maximize his value.
I guess they might say, look, we needed a good corner. Now we can get one.
They need a good corner. They need a good offensive line. They need a good receiver. We don't know what their quarterback is. There's a lot of.
But now this eliminates one thing they need in the draft.
That's true.
The other two are super deep as well.
And by the time this contract runs out and he moves on, they might have built a functional roster with the rest of their team. So hey.
Yep.
I think that's a very directionless team right now.
And they have been working on this deal for so long.
Yeah, these Snead rumors have been floating around forever.
And I just mean specifically the Titans. They have been for so long.
Yeah, I think this is definitely more of a Chiefs story than it is a Titans story because much like Nuke Hopkins, I think he's just going to go there and just kind of exist and not really do anything.
Well, DeAndre Hopkins had 1,000 yards.
And no one would ever know it because no one cares about the Titans because they're irrelevant.
All right. Well, that's our takes on the breaking news here live. Thank you, Christopher Cole, for the news. We are going to get back to the running backs. Do you have any more? I mean,
there is one more name who I really like, and I've really described him in the past as Blake Corum light, and I think he has a little bit more acceleration than Blake Corum right now.
Sure.
And that is Kamani Vidal from Troy.
Oh yeah.
He is a guy. He's very well rounded. He can catch it some. He's got decent burst. He's got decent vision. I think if you're looking at a round 6 or 7 running back, he really would fit the bill for what the Bucs need. He was 5'7", 215 pounds, did 18 reps on the bench. So he has power. He ran a 4.440, so he's got the burst. He's got the speed. I just think he'd be a really nice complement to what the Bucs are looking for. Very well-rounded, very functional.
Yeah, I mean, for a day 3 option, absolutely.
And, if they're addressing offensive line twice and edge rusher, day 3 might be where running back comes in.
Yeah, no, one name that I look at is Rasheen Ali from Marshall. I think he's pretty good too.
One of the big winners at the Senior Bowl.
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, he got hurt. He should be ready by training camp, so hopefully it doesn't affect his draft stock too much. Or maybe it does, and the Bucs just let him slide into their lap.
Yeah, that happened. That's happened. I mean, Sean Tucker, example A.
Yes, Sean Tucker, still a fan. Hope he figures it out.
Yeah.
Any other names before we wrap this thing up?
I don't think so. The big one I wanted to touch on was a Marshawn Lloyd. I'm glad you feel the same way. That's promising. It seems the Bucs like him too. So, but not from me. Anyone from you, or are you good?
No, I think those are all my big ones. You mentioned Corum. I
Yep.
think he's very similar to that Lloyd mold.
Just got no juice.
Yeah, and it's a shame. Maybe he gets it back, a year after recovery. But running
Talk
backs
about
get so
he
much
has a
wear and
lot of
tear.
miles on the tires as well.
Yeah,
That Michigan team relied on him a lot.
yeah. I think he set the school all-time leader or record in touchdowns. So
Yeah.
and
He's
that's
very
what the Bucs are looking
productive.
for.
Yeah, he's very productive. I mean, there's a lot of arguing against production because just college football is just a different level of competition. So you can never really solely go off of it. But I know it's flashy and a lot of people cling to it.
Yeah, but he's that similar bowling ball kind of mold, and if he still had that juice, I think he might make sense. I don't see it off of last
It's
year.
it's not there. It really isn't, unfortunately, because he was a fun player.
Oh yeah, as a
But
Michigan fan, loved Blake Corum.
yeah,
Football player, A+ character guy. I don't think his best football is ahead of him.
I'm with you. I am with you. I think with that, we are going to conclude our first episode of our draft series here in 2024. That was the offensive line and running backs. Let me double check our schedule.
Oh, we got defensive line next week.
Defensive line coming up next. So we're switching to the defensive side, kind of flip-flopping between offense and defense. We'll hit skill positions after that, and then back to the back seven of the defense. Defensive line, that is interior and edge rushers for anyone who might have that question. Another position group that the Bucs are likely going to attack early. We know that they are very interested in some names that they met with at the combine, and we'll touch on those then. But thank you all for listening. Thank you all for tuning in and watching. Thank you all for commenting. It's always fun talking football with y'all. I hope y'all have a great rest of your night, great rest of your weekend. And as always, go Bucs.
Go Bucs!